Let's talk about the upcoming film Emergency, starring Kangana Ranaut as the former Prime Minister Indira Gandhi. And why I'm talking about this, you'll get to know shortly. I know we are a fashion podcast, but of course, like film, cinema, textiles, everything has relevance. And today's interesting episode is all about handlooms and textiles. It is an extension to our previous episode, which was also on crafts of Orissa. And yeah, like we'll get to know more about different textiles from Nishant, who is the founder of WeaverStory. And he'll tell you the story about WeaverStory. So we have him today in the studio with us. So please say hi to Nishant. Hi Nishant, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. So tell us a little bit more about Weaver's story before we begin.
Sure. So Weaver Story is a modest beginning for a setup where we tried to make an ecosystem where we can address both the challenges a weaver faces and the opportunities that it can give to customers who are wanting to experiment and adopt more and more Indian textiles. So it's dedicated to only handcrafts, primarily hand woven garments and embroideries, etc., which are done only by hand. So our tagline is hand woven for you. So it is all
Okay.
handcrafted and hand woven for the person who's going to
And
buy.
how long does it approximately take to, make a garment which is hand woven?
So hand woven garments typically are dependent on a couple of things in terms of what the ingredients are. Mostly the structure of the handloom and also the technique which is going to get involved. So a garment which is hand woven can be as low as 4 to 5 days to even the ikats and the patolas and very finely woven banarsis and all can take up to 6 7 months also.
Okay, so do you specialize in one particular kind of craft or textile, or does it like vary?
WeaverStory is a platform which is dedicated to handwoven crafts, and we are not just limited to one region or cluster. So, though we started our journey with Banarsis, and we've now grown to about 10 different clusters in weaving in India, which caters to about 19 different ODOP products, which is one district, one product initiative by the government of India.
Hmm.
So we delve into 19 different types of products, and that story is just unfolding. We plan to go much to almost every major cluster in India, and take it to about 200 products. That's the idea.
Are there any particular policies that, have really benefited your brand? Because I was recently reading that I think in July, there was actually a policy, 100 clusters revival, I think in Guwahati. And it's like a recent policy. So, is there anything like that which has really impacted your brand or benefited it?
So there are multiple initiatives that the government has been taking in terms of reviving and creating a market, which is also our endeavor to create a ecosystem where more and more people tend to see and appreciate the hand weaving craft, as it is our craft is a very rich history, and if you look at even times before British girls came in, France had being buying so much from India, especially the textiles, that they had to put a ban in their own country that all the gold reserves are going to India to buy the textiles. So with such rich history.
Hmm.
So and then when Britishers came in to protect their own weaves, they cut thumbs of our handloom weavers so that they couldn't weave. Our handlooms were set at fire. The Manchester city's production was kind of threatened, and then there are
This is such a, sorry to interrupt you,
sure.
this is such a unique concept. I mean, it was so, I don't know what to call it, but like, even when Shah Jahan had apparently cut the thumbs or hands of,
Yeah.
the people who were building the structure, and then now you have given this information. So, what was the whole idea of this, or why was it needed?
So whole idea was because I don't know too much about Shah Jahan, but yes, I know about that he had cut the hands of people who had built the Taj Mahal.
Yeah.
The entire idea was that nobody should be able to replicate it. Even if they found resources to do it, the people who've done it should not be available to do it again. And that was the idea of, because thumb plays a major role on how the handloom worked. So for them to, kind of run the handloom, and, thumb was an important part. So if the thumb is not there, they will not be able to, run the handloom. And so they would look at other occupations. And that is what the intention
But
of
it's quite
Britishers
an
was.
unfair practice, is
It
what I'm
definitely
trying to
is was
say.
an
Yeah,
unfair, and I don't think so anything which went across, at least in the British rule that we recall, is fair. And
that's
yeah,
true.
I don't know whether it's quotable or not, but I recently saw a meme
Okay.
on one of the Instagram posts where somebody had posted that Ben Stokes had lost one of his luggages, and he mentioned, can somebody help me find out where can I find stolen luggage from?
Yeah.
And a person responded to his Instagram post by putting a picture of the Museum of England, saying, this is where most of the stolen goods are. So I
That is funny.
yeah. So that's how typically I think that reflects upon what we had gone through in those 200 years. Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, yeah, thank you for that insight. Also, I wanted to know that you are typically a businessman and you were in the corporate for a
Correct.
very long time. So, why did you suddenly decide to shift into the textile and the fashion space?
I had spent about 15 plus years in corporates, working with most of the biggest conglomerates and, Fortune 500 companies, offices in India. And I, it was never planned that I'll get into fashion or textiles as such, as a business occupation. But yes, I was planning on doing something on my own. And then what instigated was we created a Facebook page to help sort of a weaver who was struggling to find a market for his produce.
Hmm.
And when we spoke to him, and he was quite he'd spent about 15-20 years training on the loom, so he was a master craftsman on his own right. A person who would actually in education spend 15-20 years, he's probably be an MD right now, equivalent to that. So he's trained for 15-20 years, and he's trying to still figure out whether he'll be able to sell what he's weaving and all. And we had created that page to kind of support him. And then we started to narrate the stories on how he has chosen to weave this a certain design in a certain way by using a certain technique or the color palette that was there. And that is what I think also caught a lot of people's eye when we started to push that as a story on Facebook with pictures. And one of the very interesting stories in that was that there was a weaver who had in his own interpretation created Gangaji on a
Okay.
sari which has boat motifs. So
Hmm.
the boat motifs, when it came to pallu, they were going from up to down. So they were going straight from one end to the other. So
Oh.
it looked like they were misplaced, and they should be facing the other side. And everybody kept telling him, this is not the genuine product, or this is not rightly woven. It's not that
Hmm.
it was genuine, it was not rightly woven, it was a mistake, and it was rejected by everyone. And that story we kind of also told in our Facebook, that he is right in his own right, because he said that when I do a sari, and every time practically a boat goes from one bank to the other bank, there is a
Hmm.
bank, right?
Yeah.
Boat can't just keep sailing in Gangaji. So his story was what was mentioned in the entire narrative, and a lot of people caught the eye of it, saying that technically is right, and and why should that be rejected? So and nobody was buying that sari. So in the
Okay.
entire wholesale market, when he was trying to push it as a retailer and going, or as a weaver going to the wholesalers, everybody said the sari was is उसमें motive गलत है, ये
Hmm.
तुमने गलत साड़ी बनाई है. तो that, I think, that was the weaver's story of why he chose to make this sari. And that's how we coined our name also. Then this is weaver's interpretation. He is the technician around it. He's the one who's chosen to make a sari, and that is what goes on. So that's where we realized that that and a lot of people connected to that story, and
Hmm.
there was a lot of interaction on our Facebook page because of that sari. and that's when we started to getting in. The other part was also we realized that because of internet and social media being very uh, I think it was not explored for doing such kind of a dialogue or on any of our traditional weaves, anything like that. So a lot of participation started to coming from the people who are viewing those pictures and reading about it. So they
Okay.
started talking to us. They reached out to us. They wanted to connect with the weaver. They wanted to buy the sari and all. But having said that, they were also not very confident about the fact that whether they're buying a genuine stuff or not. So they
Okay.
wanted that authentication and all of it to come from us.
So that's where you come
That's where
in.
we realized that
Hmm.
then we can play a major role in terms of having a catalyst, because a lot of these people are dependent on our
Certification.
certification and doing the groundwork and ensuring that the product is delivered and it's right in terms of quality and all. So, and there's a huge diaspora who is appreciative or appreciates the handlooms. So that's when we started reaching out.
That was a lot of serious conversation. So we'll just ask you a few fun things. Now, back in the day, there was a trend, like especially with film enthusiasts, that they used to copy what they saw on screen when it came to fashion. And I think, I mean, my mom used to tell me that there was so and so actor or actresses, and she used to like this pattern, this design, and she used to like
Yeah,
replicate
yeah.
it. And that's the case, I think, with Sarda Sari,
Sari,
right?
correct.
I don't know if
Sarada
I'm
sari.
pronouncing. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. And that is from Venkatagiri,
correct.
technically, which people I think don't know about. So, can you tell what is that sari about? Why did it become so famous, or why did she choose it, like for herself?
Yeah. So Venkatagiri is a cluster down south. Mostly people know more Kanjivaram, but Venkatagiri was also a cluster where mostly the weaving was cotton based, and they used to make such fine cotton which is not heard of, about 300 count cotton, which used to be so opulent, that it was nearly see through. It was so fine, and but it was also a mark of opulence. People with a certain amount of money would only be able to afford it, because they were normally woven with such fine cotton count with gold threads.
Hmm.
So everything used to be gold. So that is why it was only woven by a chosen elite population, especially the royals, etc. And that's when also the famous actress Sarada over there had commissioned a design for herself, which basically was meant to make it look like something like a transparent tissue where gold would be more prominently seen.
Okay, so
And
it's
she
like
had
she's wearing gold all over her
but
body.
it's which also has a see-through sort of effect in terms of
Okay.
opulence. So that had an extra weft of gold behind the sari. So one extra string of gold used to go inside every behind every thread. So that kind of became a rage for obviously the opulence it carries, and obviously she was carrying it, and
Hmm.
that is how. And it was a technique which was exploited by her and created on her request. So that also got her a lot of fame. So that was a very
Okay.
interesting piece. Normally celebrities would not get into the design part and all of it.
Yeah.
At least today they don't. But yeah, she not only adopted the entire weaving pattern, but also kind of made it very popular because she wore it. And this I think happens
I
today
think this
also.
was those times. I don't know, like, if people get as involved as they used to earlier, but I've even heard, like, I was listening to an interview of Manish Malhotra, and he was talking about how Sri Devi
Hmm.
has really taught him a lot. And like she used to explain, because she had so much knowledge, even about fashion, when she was not from that space. So I think this used to happen a lot back then.
Correct.
I don't know if it happens now. Was there any time where you got inspired by any actor on screen, and you thought, okay, I also want this kind of an outfit?
Personally, I have not been though I would probably recall 20 years down the line, yeah, maybe when I was getting married somewhere, then maybe I would have thought of it. But otherwise, from a heritage perspective, we've not done. But we've done a lot of revivals otherwise in
Hmm.
terms of craft and designs, which have become a rage later also. like some of the sarees which were already existing, but because a celebrity wore, a lot of people started adopting it or
Hmm.
asking for it. That happens quite often, and I think it's a good thing that a celebrity kind of endorses it, so uski value बढ़ जाती है, and people start to
Hmm.
look at that, as a we when they start to understand, okay, this is existing in the whole India is also in India, all of this is available.
I think
So
it
that
has a lot to
happens.
do with the admiration they have for
uh,
that person.
and how they carry it,
Yeah.
also. And I think a lot of time what happens is when a celebrity wears it, there's a sentiment and authenticity attached to it when they are doing it. Probably
Hmm.
it makes it right for everybody. That's a
True.
Yeah,
Also, like some credit goes to the stylist as well
yeah,
because
yeah,
how
yeah, a
well
lot of
they
it.
style. Yeah. Otherwise, an individual might not be able to bring it out that well.
An individual may like, the feel of the garment, the color of the
Hmm.
garment, and all of it, but they may not buy it for the technique and the hard work behind it. The stylist plays a very important, crucial role on understanding all of it, how it is going to be represented.
Absolutely. Talking about celebrities, so recently this movie is coming, right?
Emergency.
Emergency. And I think you have,
Yeah.
designed some outfits for
Yeah.
Kangana in that. So can you tell us more about the
Sure.
saris?
So I think again the stylist has a very important role over there also. Sheetal Sharma had, and his team had kind of approached us when they were trying to. They were also wanting to replicate exactly the closest possible sarees which Indira Gandhi herself had worn at those points of time where there were major incidences or episodes which are happening in her life, and they wanted, and they referred to a lot of these documentation and pictures and all which was available to them.
Hmm.
So they shared with us. Some of them were kanjivarams and all of that. So they wanted the closest replica of those, and we worked with the team and we created most of those sarees. We created about 10 pieces when Nixon had come in, and when she was signing off on the draft of a lot of these. So those
So what are the techniques that are involved in those kind of
So
saris?
we could not replicate the exact techniques at those sarees, but we made the closest designs. So some of them very interesting is that we actually had an antique border which we want, because they had wanted a kanjivaram which they needed to shoot in say about 4 to 5 days, but a
Okay.
kanjivaram sari would have taken at least 3 to 4 months for us to make of that same type. So what we did was we actually acquired a antique border from one of the resellers, and
Okay.
we put it in a silk cloth, and we replicated the entire look of the sari in that way. So we've done those things to make it closest to how she would have worn it, but given the time constraint and obviously the what is required. So, and we did block we used block printing, we
Hmm.
used different sarees needed different type of treatment, but
Okay.
like I said, it had to be based on the narrative that was given to us and also the timelines.
And how do these stylists, for those who don't know, like how do they discover brands like yours and then they think, ki, okay, this will suit us and we should approach them? How is that process like?
So how they approached us was their research team had done some research on the internet and found out about who all does the kinds of sarees that Indira Gandhi used to wear, in terms of
Okay.
who could do Banarsis, Kanjivarams, and all of it. And then they went on to further dive into the pictures that we have on our Instagram, and they reached out to us.
So social
And
media plays a very crucial
very
role for
important role,
visibility.
very important role.
Hmm.
And that's where they also kind of saw that these hardies can be done, and then they came out with the project and they referred to us that these are the very stringent timelines that they had,
Hmm.
and that's how.
Lovely. You spoke about Venkatagiri,
Correct.
and it's a town in Andhra Pradesh,
G.
right? And the craft over there was not been practiced for like 70 odd years,
Correct.
and then you guys decided to revive the cluster. Now, before we get into the details of it, for those who don't know, what is a cluster and what does this revival mean, and what is like the fashion aspect of a cluster?
Sure. So cluster is normally a geographically identified town, like you said, a place where normally, you will have a handful of weavers and all, and they would, within that identified area, or which is demarcated as a geography, could be a Banarsi, could be a Venkatagiri town, where most of the processes relating to the garment takes place.
Hmm.
So normally, almost all processes would take place within the geographically identified cluster.
And the whole family is doing the
So
same
could be
thing?
there is like most of the handloom weavers is the second largest employer in India after agriculture.
Hmm.
And normally what happens is the entire family gets involved in the process. Like I said, there are about 50 to 60 processes in a handloom weaving sari. So one of the processes, each one is kind of involved. So it's a cottage industry. Normally the looms are set up within the house. It is not that you have to go out and in a shed, not an industrial unit. So it is there in the house, so people get involved. There is what you called in economics a disguise and employment there, or
Okay.
employment rather, for people, because wives would also get involved. Everything will happen there.
So why did you choose Venkatagiri specifically? Like
Yeah.
there are so many other clusters as well. So why was that the most
So
recent choice?
Venkatagiri, actually what happened was that cluster was primarily identified by Tata Trust, and
Okay.
they had started this paid work in terms of understanding and documenting
So
uh,
you guys
the
work
garment.
closely with Tata
Yeah,
Trust.
we do. What we were doing there was that once they identified and they had, documented, and the very good part of this was they were also documenting it in terms of written text,
Okay.
which is a challenge. Like I said earlier, also, everything which has happened is almost hearsay. दादा उसके बच्चे ऐसे
Hmm.
सीखते जा रहे हैं, but there is no documentation as such. So they started to document. They got pictures, archives from museums. बल्कि एक उन्होंने बहुत अच्छा इनिशिएटिव किया था वहाँ पे क्राफ्ट काउंसिल के साथ. दे कॉल्ड आउट लॉट ऑफ फैमिलीज एंड पीपल हु हैड वेंकटगिरी साड़ीज इनहेरिटेड फ्रॉम देयर
Oh.
फोरफादर्स. सो दे गॉट दोज, जिसके पास आधी साड़ी भी थी वो भी, तो उसकी पिक्चर्स लेना, उसको मेजर करना कितना बॉर्डर होगा, क्या टेक्निक उसमें लगी थी, identified and started documenting it. Once they done that process, they had also reached out, and when we were discussing, we identified that there are eight designs that we chose that we will work with them on, and we started to produce the four, which basically, because are the simpler ones to start with, so that the weaver gets involved, because after 70 years अगर कोई weave करने लगा है, जो
Hmm.
जिसकी जनरेशन खत्म हो चुकी, जो पहले वीव करती थी, तो सो वो भी उनके लिए भी चैलेंज है, बिकॉज देव जस्ट सीन दैट वीविंग हैपन. अब
Yeah.
उसको एक्चुअली करना है, उसको वो काम. तो हमने पहले सिंपल से शुरू किया, देन वील गो टू मोर इंट्रिकेट डिज़ाइंस, and that's how the revival journey has started. So we've revived 8 designs with them, and then there's a whole lot of things which are going to come out of that cluster.
The women in Venkatgiri, do they wear those particular saris for, like let's say their wedding or any occasion?
They have not been wearing for because it was not existing for about 70 years.
Okay.
So they were
But they had
prime.
like inherited it.
So like I
So,
said, it was primarily for the richer class, so it was
okay.
not available. But mostly they've been wearing, which is close to Kanjivaram and all of it, traditionally also for major functions, and that is what the style of weaving had changed to, because the structure of a loom and the jacquard loom, everything is a little different for Venkatgiri than a Kanjivaram. So that way.
Okay. And what were the emotions of the artisans? Were they like very excited about it, or were they like, oh, we can't do it now because it's been so long?
हाँ, so there was obviously inhibitions about it, but they were still, yeah. अगर वो नहीं होता excited तो शायद ये होता ही नहीं project, then it would have been just a documentary that is
Yeah.
existing. But उसके बाद the excitement level always showed from their participation. they किसी भी cluster में कहीं पे भी जाएंगे आप, जहाँ पे भी labor involved होती है, हाथ, especially हाथ की, their biggest challenge is, if I produce it, or if I'm not able to, because it is happening after so long, what happens, because I am putting my man hours.
Hmm.
So the that is where we kind of say that the ecosystem exists, and that's what our responsibility as Weaver Story was to, whatever you do, you're not at loss, you get paid for it, it is our loss, we are reviving it. So there will be certain things which will go wrong, which will come out right. It may take a little time to develop. That's the call. That's our business.
So you
So
take
that
the
was
sole
the so
responsibility
that
of
is
it.
how
I
that
think
then
that's a
only,
good thing because you're giving them that kind of security that
exactly.
even if things go south, it's okay. Like we are there to
Yeah.
kind of back you. So that's a good thing. What were your particular emotions like when this came to life, this whole project, and you saw it blooming? What was your project? What did people say? What was the kind of feedback that you got?
So I think it's been very well received, and Roots Rewoven is the project that we've called it, and this is part of the actual larger picture where we've already done couple of revivals in terms of designs and in terms of weaves also, techniques also. We were already doing it in Banaras, and we'd also launched a project in Chanderi where we were only doing which is called Sahaj. We were only doing it with women weavers there to
Okay.
encourage women weavers. So there are different projects that we've already been associated, and this was something new. Uh, but it has been very well accepted. We did a launch on the 7th of August, which is the National Handloom Day
Hmm.
in Delhi, and it was very well received. The program was very well attended, and people also understood and appreciated. I think the only thing is there's a lot of education that one needs to impart in this entire thing for them to differentiate. A sari is a sari is a sari, but what is a sari which is a Banarsi or a Kanjivaram or some other weave? How does one learn to appreciate it? What a peacock motif in a Banaras and a peacock motif in a Kanjivaram? Everybody uses a peacock motif everywhere you go. Petni, everybody has a different connotation to it, you know
Okay.
and they weave it differently. They have a different meaning attached to it. So अगर वो appreciate करना सिखाएंगे तो I think there'll be more adaptation to it. People
Hmm.
will relate to it. किसकी story telling has to improve. जैसे पता ही नहीं लोगों को कि जैसे वही पीताम्बरी साड़ी होती थी. Even men used to wear it for pujas in
Oh,
Banaras. You know,
men used to wear saris.
for pujas, pitambari sarees, yellow sarees,
Wow.
pitambari होती थी, तो they used to put it on
And
their
how
head, and
long back was this?
not very long, about 100 years back.
Okay.
So even they used to wear it. So if that is happening, and and there has an auspicious meaning to it, so if people know about it, and I'm sure they will adapt it. They will
What
be
what is
willing
the
to do it.
meaning behind? Now I am interested to know.
So pitambari is the yellow sari, which was basically the connotation in terms of the color which was used, is known to be auspicious for doing all pujas and havans that is there.
Okay.
So that is why they used to wear it, and it used to be kora, matlab not worn earlier. It used to be
Ah,
worn first time, not made of
okay.
kora, but yeah, it has to be unwashed, unworn earlier. So that is how it used to be.
I think we're coming back, a full circle because nowadays also you'll see a lot of
Yeah.
men wearing lehenga skirts or saris
I think
and
that's more fashion.
yeah, but
Yeah.
I mean it's coming back in a way. I mean it did start
So they would
somewhere.
not wear it like the men who are wearing it today in terms of a
Of
sari.
course, of course.
That
Yeah.
was more of a drape for dhoti and covering your head and all of it. But yes, so I think it always comes back. Especially the traditions and all of it comes back. The challenge is how do you? So there is a fine line, white, and so there is some gray area. How do you understand which is gray area, what is not? So I think that's fair.
Interesting. What is the next project or next cluster that you think you guys are going to venture into? Have you planned anything ahead?
So there are a couple of POCs which are underway, which we are, going to be launching this year, uh, and that you'll definitely see. One of them is going to be in Pechni, and one of them is going to be in chicken curry. Plus, there are a couple of revival projects which are underway, which are in discussion with the Tata Trust. So we'll be coming up with those this year.
Got it. And my last thing that I want to know from you, um, so why is this revival so important today, according to you? I mean, everybody has attached like a different emotion and meaning to this, but what is it for you?
See, revival is a part of our heritage, in terms of a person or as an Indian. Like I said, we had such a rich culture and heritage, and textiles used to be such an important part. So, revival is about, giving a new life to a certain craft, and then giving it an opportunity to blossom. So it helps you understand as a person, as an Indian, as a consumer, to appreciate what was with us. Whether we want to continue with it or not is going to be maybe decided by the economics of it. If
Mm-hmm.
more and more people adapt to it. But I think, given that we are such a large population, about 140 odd crores now, so if, and I assume very simplistically, if I say even 70 crore were women, of which say even 10% can afford buying a handloom sari area. So we are talking about selling about 7 crore odd sarees इन अ
Mm.
ईयर. तो अगर आप एक हैंडलूम में, और हम कह रहे हैं कि एक हैंडलूम साड़ी के बनाने में अबाउट 50 families गेट सपोर्ट. सो इफ़ यू बाय वन प्रोडक्ट every year, that's it, 7 crore into 50 families is what you're supporting. You can give livelihood. So it is also the ecosystem that is. So that is why it is very close. Just by doing one product, and one product would not be more than 20,000 rupees in a year.
Mm-hmm.
If you can spend that and support 50 different families, I think we're doing a magnificent job
So the
of
social
supporting
impact
it.
is huge.
Social impact is huge. The craft itself is huge. People outside are talking about it. Fashion, they're trying to research about how it was done. They're trying to replicate it. China is trying to make machines who could copy this and use AI to copy it. So all
Mm.
of that is already inbuilt into us,
Yeah.
that craft. Then why not we take, enjoy it more than that, them.
No, that's true. Okay, so thank you for sharing such great insights. And yes, we should absolutely enjoy what we have more than others in the West are trying to enjoy, because it's there right like with us in our home country. Anyway, so we will play like a fun game. This is like a section which we usually do. You have to be quick about it. I'll ask you like 4 to 5 questions, okay? And
Sure.
you can just be candid, honest. You don't have to think much. Okay. A personality who's a constant source of inspiration for you.
Recently, for my business, if you look at it from a perspective of handloom and all, I am very influenced by comments of Ratna Pathak Shah.
Hmm.
She is a very she talks about it very vocally, and also has been adopting it. Obviously there are a lot of Bollywood celebrities, but she's very consistent with her messaging.
Got it. If you had to do a fashion experiment in your personal wardrobe, what would that be?
I've been experimenting quite a bit, but yeah, one of the things that I have been wanting to do is create, and I've created for some of our clients, is to create a lot of men's vests and bandis, Nehru jackets, which similar to that, in Banarsis.
Okay. An idea that changed your life.
Idea was to start WeaverStory.
And that completely
That
changed your life.
completely changed my life. Yeah,
And
I would have
anything.
never
Okay.
thought, with the master's degree in business and over 15 years of experience in banking and financial services, I would have done that. But yes, it did change my life.
A childhood dream that you still hold on to and aspire to fulfill eventually.
So that is to go to Disneyland in California, in
Oh,
Florida
nice.
actually.
Nice. So, have you been to any
I have
Disneyland
been to
elsewhere?
the Hong Kong one, but I have not been to the Florida one. Yeah.
We all have childhood dreams we should fulfill. Okay, great. So, thank you. That was the end of our episode.
Thank you.
How was your experience sharing such great insights with us?
I think it is lovely that we could talk impromptu, and to reach out to so many people and tell what we do. It's a very new understanding of how you guys look at traditional weaves and all. I think that's a very potent place to talk about all of this. And also, I would urge everybody to also look at contemporarizing how weaves can be adopted and made more popular with the younger generation.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
If you guys have any comments for us, please do drop it in the comment section below, or you can text us on 8588966996 or email us on pods@indiatoday.com. Thank you. Bye.